Welcome to Lead Like Her broadcast. I'm very excited today. I have Tina Bhojwani on. She is the co-founder, I should say, co-founder and CEO of Aera, which is a vegan luxury shoe brand, footwear brand that was launched in February of 2020. The company is a certified B Corp, and also the company is carbon neutral. So she created this brand around what she saw as a problem in the fashion industry. Tina comes with a wealth of experience. She worked for Donna Karan, Theory, Dolce and Gabbana. And throughout her 20-year career, she has seen the impact of fashion on people and the planet and really wants to make a change for the better. So I'm very excited to welcome her and learn about her leadership style. I'm so excited to welcome Tina Bhojwani on Lead Like Her. Tina is the CEO and founder of Aera, which is a luxury vegan shoe brand. So welcome, Tina.
Thank you so much for having me, Shelley. It's an honor to be here and to share the story of our company.
Absolutely. And I'm so excited to have you on our Lead Like Her because when I think of leadership today, I think of you and I think of how you kind of really wanted to make a difference in the industry. And I know that there's a lot of young leaders that can learn from your success. So we'll jump right into the questions if that's okay.
Perfect.
You actually have a very impressive background. Before you founded your own company, Era, you were a substantial global brand leader. You worked for Donna Karan, you worked for Theory, Dolce and Gabbana. So when you think about all these massive roles at these high designers, what inspired you to kind of take your leadership and go into a new direction by launching your own company?
It's a great question. I spent 20 years working in the industry and feel really fortunate to have had the opportunities I had, to have had the experiences, the bosses, the teams, everyone around me, and I felt like I learned a lot. What's great about the industry, and quite honestly, like what needed to change about the industry. And I just got to a point in my career that I felt like giving back and doing something with purpose and mission, and wanted to move the industry forward by starting a company that combined sustainability with luxury fashion. And so the idea of Era was born. And our company launched 5 years ago, and we wanted to show that sustainability and luxury should and can go hand in hand. And so, sort of take what's good from luxury, which is artisanal craftsmanship, and quality and longevity, and marry that with innovation and next generation materials and transparent supply chains. And so that was really what the mission was when we started the company.
That's great. And some of the people that are watching this may not be familiar with Era. So maybe you can tell us what the brand is and what the intention of the brand is.
Absolutely. So the brand is a luxury footwear brand, but completely vegan. We're B Corp certified. We're carbon neutral. So we've done a lot of work around sustainability. And I always say that I don't think our industry needs another brand per se, but Air is a platform to show a new way of thinking about how business can be done, with an emphasis on the planet, on people, and on animal welfare.
That's outstanding. And so when I think about launching a company, you really wanted to be a certified B Corp and you really wanted to take on becoming carbon neutral. And just saying both those, trying to accomplish both those goals and start a company seems almost unfathomable. Tell us, how did you get other people to follow on this journey?
Interesting. As I said, we started the company because the core was sustainability, and I wanted to have the certification to show that the work was legitimate and really make it easy for the customer to understand, what this company was about, but we didn't lead with that at all. So we decided that the way to bring the customer into the journey and stay on the journey was to lead with really beautiful, comfortable, luxurious shoes that were as good as any other shoes that were in the market. And it's almost like the bonus is that the company's carbon neutral and the company is B Corp certified. And I think that, that sort of maybe keeps people with us. People got involved because they like the product. And then I think understanding the mission, like, keeps clients loyal. So we sort of made that the bonus rather than what we led with.
That's so interesting. And it's interesting because you're right. It all goes back. You have to have a quality, great product, right? And then once you have that quality, great product, you give the consumers a reason to stay with you.
Yes,
The
and I
other
don't think anyone's gonna buy a product just because it's sustainable or it's B Corp or it's carbon neutral, but you're gonna buy something, especially, with what we're doing, luxury footwear, because, it's comfortable and you like it, and there's like almost an emotional attraction to it in a way.
Your footwear is beautiful and it is so comfortable. You've actually won a lot of awards for your design work in the footwear industry.
We've won some awards in innovation, and we recently just actually patented our quilted insole, which is our signature. So that's something that's unique to us and something we developed, and that's become, sort of our identifier as a brand.
I think it's also interesting because you and I have had conversations about this before. We have these young leaders in our industry or students, and they look at people like you, Tina, who are so successful, and you have this great brand, and you've done so many wonderful things, and you're giving back to the environment and the community. And so a lot of young leaders think, oh, it's a perfect little road, right? But one of the things you always have said is that you actually failure is part of the journey. Actually failing helps you foster growth. So can you tell us a little bit about what you mean by that and maybe perhaps share one of your failures that help you grow?
Gosh, I mean, I've had so many, I wouldn't say failures, but setbacks or, times where things didn't go as expected, or I took a wrong decision, let's say. And one time it was sort of not trusting my gut and going with going in the opposite direction. It was something I regretted, and it was human resource related. And, it was a really powerful lesson that you should trust your gut. And, you learn so much from those types of experiences. And quite honestly, I think if you're not willing to fail as a human being, you're not willing to take a risk. And then, if you're not willing to take a risk, then you're sort of just maintaining what exists. So I think failure helps you, take a different path and understand that it's a part of the journey. And I'm sure there aren't very many successful leaders who haven't failed, and haven't learned a lot. You learn a lot more from failing, I think, than coasting along a path that's smooth. We also launched during the pandemic, so we had to pivot our company so many times just to stay alive. And so I think you have to embrace failure, and you have to learn to pivot and be flexible as a leader. And what looks one way has a lot of complications behind it, I think, especially when it's entrepreneurial. So yeah.
I've heard someone describe leadership as doing something really well when others can't. And so you talk about this time of when you launched your company during the pandemic, and that must have been such a difficult time, yet you were able to pivot and you were able to kind of understand the priorities changed very quickly. So I'm impressed that you led through a very difficult time at the beginning of your company.
Thank you. It was really challenging, and I mean, I think it was a challenging time for everyone, not just our whole industry, but starting a company and launching. We really had to make some tough decisions and stay calm and collected, and just figure out a way to continue and navigate that. And thankfully we did, and we're here today, and now on the other side of it. So thank you for that.
The other thing that's really interesting, Tina, about your company, and I love this aspect of your company. It's one of my favorite things. And when we first met, I didn't even know this about the company, but I knew the day I met you that I had to be around you. You just have such a positive energy, but you actually built a community around women. And you did this in what you call your Era family. So, can you talk a little bit about what motivated you to kind of create this community around women and why was this important to you?
Absolutely. So when the time came for us to fundraise, still a little company, still early on, I wanted to raise money, but not just money for the sake of money, but to bring people into this company who believed in Era, the mission, who appreciated the product, but also, got the vision and knew that it was going to take time. And so I started to present it to women. Actually, to be honest, someone approached me to see if they could invest, and then someone else did. And little by little, I said, if I could gather a group of women, then, you know, this can be a different path to fundraising. And today we have 18 women who are part of the Era family all over the world, from Milan to Dubai to London to, here in America and beyond. And, they serve as investors first, but also um, ambassadors and advisors. And what's remarkable is the community amongst the women. So it goes beyond the brand because they formed individual friendships and so on and so forth. And I knew that it was a tough journey. We were doing something different. I'm, humble enough to know that nothing good happens alone. So this seemed like an interesting idea, and so we're at that stage today, and literally I seek help and advice all the time from these women. So it's a great community, and it's just a different way of doing things. Like our company's trying to do something different, so even the fundraising, we took a different approach there too.
I think it's great. And quite honestly, it's very difficult for female led companies to get investor funding. So I love your approach.
And I think that every single woman who's a part of the Era family believes in the power of uplifting other women. So it's a really amazing thing. And literally, the some of the ladies will fly to Milan for Fashion Week to come and support our events and to connect with each other and have unofficial board meetings and so on and so forth. So it's been really really helpful. I feel really blessed that we have this family.
It's awesome. I love it. The other thing that you do is when you talk about, how do women rise up? What skills do they need? Your advice that you give to them is to cultivate a broad range of skills. So what do you mean by that?
I mean, I think we can go through life staying in a lane and doing what we're meant to do and doing that well. But I think to really be successful and to become a leader, you need to be very aware of what's going on around you, not just in your organization, but apart from that. So say in fashion, I would say to young leaders, like be aware of what's going on and how things are changing in the world and how consumer trends are changing and what impact is AI going to have on our businesses and so on and so forth. So I think you've just got to be curious and see beyond what it is you do.
The other thing that you and I have talked about is mentorship and the importance of not just being a mentor, but being, a mentee. And so you talk a lot about your influences over your long established career. So can you tell me a little bit about, have you had any like specific mentors that come to mind that influenced your leadership journey?
I've had several actually, and from the very beginning, my first boss and someone who gave me the ability to do more than was just my job and take on more responsibility and I've also had learned from leaders and CEOs that do think, that know that you need both the art and the science to run a company in fashion. It's not just about the numbers, but it's also not just about beautiful product. And how do you balance those two things? I've learned about culture. through mentors and how important corporate culture is and how you bring people along a journey. So yes, I have had a lot of great experiences with leaders and peers, and what I want to do is give back because I think it's critically important, and I know that I wouldn't be where I was today without that mentorship.
Well, one of our missions in doing the Lead Like Her series is to provide inspiration for future female leaders, but also to help existing leaders in our industry to succeed. So, you mentioned that you like to pay it forward. So, how are you actively mentoring or supporting the development of our future leaders?
I like to think that, it's a part of our culture at Era to mentor. We've always had students since we started the company that are both here and in Milan that are a part of the company, interning, learning, doing projects with us. I've hosted students also classes in both the New York and Milan studios. We do panels, we take interviews. And actually, right now, we're working on a really special project with Marangoni, which is the main fashion school in Italy, and the students there. So I think it's really a part of being an entrepreneur is having that ability to decide, that you can mentor in different ways, and that, as I said before, was really important to me.
It's great that you have access to students on both sides of the globe. Like you can get such a great perspective. So I know that you spoke to our students at Fashion Institute of Technology during our collegiate DECA leadership event that we had. The
Yes.
students just loved you. They thought you were amazing. And then you also came to visit and you saw firsthand our students working in our shoe and accessory design program with Professor Sarah Mullen. So, how else do you incorporate this mentorship in your everyday life? You're out there, you're with students, you do this in Milan, you do it in New York, you have your company culture. Are there other things that you're doing to kind of incorporate mentorship in your everyday life?
I think having a student with us, right now I have a graduate student who's helping us. Is always, I think that's sort of day to day. And I learn as much as I think I give back because I'm seeing what's going on, with the young people today and what they're interested in. And so it's actually a really interesting exchange. And like I said, I always take calls or interviews or join panels. And, I stay very connected to my university and the fashion schools, both here in New York and in Milan. So it's an ongoing thing, and I think that it is important, and like I said, it's mutually beneficial. It's not just a one-way street, so, I'm fully aware of that too.
Yeah, it's great. I learned so much from my students. Like, it's amazing. Like, I'm going in to teach the students, but I walk away learning an awful lot from them. So it's great to have that two-way mentorship, right?
Absolutely.
So, if you look back on your career, what do you think the most valuable lesson is that you have learned as a leader that you'd like to share with aspiring female leaders?
And there are a couple, I think. I think a really valuable one is for female leaders, is to know their worth, or for a female leader to know her worth and to be able to claim it. I've seen a lot of talented women who um, who don't do that, myself included at times in my career. So I think it's important to know what you bring to the table. And then, going back to something I said earlier, I think it's important to take risks, because the greater the risk, the greater the reward, and we all need to be taking more risks as the world is changing today. So those would be two things.
And what's interesting about taking risk is women traditionally are more conservative and they're not as good as male leaders about taking risks. So is if we could just follow up on that, is there any advice that you could give women to kind of get them thinking about how to become a risk taker?
It's totally. I would say I would go back to the topic we spoke about earlier. It's don't be so afraid of failure. And if you're less afraid of failure, I think you're more apt to take a risk. And I agree with you. Women are less likely to be risk takers, and they're less likely to know their worth. So I think, those two things are really, really important.
Those are great. And I'm very conservative with everything I do. So I have to rethink about that, taking more risks. So now we're going to get into what I like to call the rapid fire questions. And these are questions I'm just going to ask boom, 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 and then you
Okay.
just answer. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. What's one piece of advice that you would give to female leaders that are currently working?
That's different from what I said before.
Well, it doesn't have to be different, but if you had to call it down to one piece of advice to women that are currently working, what would that be?
I would say be a good listener. I think sometimes we don't listen enough, and you learn so much when when you get a group conversation going. So apart from knowing your worth and taking risks, I think it's important to lead with some level of humility and compassion, and to be able to listen, because we learn so much, and my former roles at big companies, the amount I learned from the people working in the shop floor, or in the cutting room, or in the design studio. I think you've got to talk to people, and you've got to listen to what they have to say, because you're able to make better decisions that way.
Yeah, that's great. And what three tips would you give students that these are our emerging leaders of our industry?
There's no shortcuts, so work hard, and I think it definitely pays off. I think that always remember to be kind and compassionate. And then one that I think is really important, and I see less of that happening today. So I think it's important to say this to students, is like, always get back to people. So reply to the email, take the phone call, get back to people, be professional.
Excellent. And my last rapid fire question is, what is your legacy? What do you want to leave behind for the next generation?
I would like to leave behind a more sustainable industry in fashion. I'd like to do my part there. And, I think that why we're doing this is also to show that, business can be a force of good, and why can't that be more of the normal than the exception? So that would be what I would want to leave, and that's why I left, corporate the corporate industry behind, to pioneer something different. Because I really believe we've got to change, and we can change in a very interesting way if we take a 360-degree approach to what that change is. And, we're lucky. We work in an industry that's so creative. There's all this innovation going on, so we can do better.
I love that. Okay, this is the last question. And this question is a fun one. It can be anything, it doesn't have to be work related. But what
Okay.
is your secret power?
I think that one thing I can say about myself is that I am a fairly calm person. So even under crisis or difficult situations, and I think that helps me sort of navigate life in general. I don't overreact, or sort of get crazy. So I think the fact that I can maintain like focus and calm even in tough situations, is very helpful to me.
I love that secret power. That's a great one to have. Is there any closing thoughts that you'd like to share?
I appreciate being a part of this podcast very much, Shelley, our friendship, the work we've done together at FIT. And I think I'd like to just remind everyone that, as you grow and develop and move further on the corporate ladder, to remember that people around you helped you get there, and to do the same for those who follow, and for peers. I think we've got to lift each other up, as we go, and we've got to remember how important that is. So everyone moves forward together, and we help each other. I think that we need a lot more of that.
Well, thank you, Tina. Those are excellent parting words. So thank you so much. Thank you for your time, your generosity. And you always, when I pick up the phone and say, hey, Tina, can you? You always say yes. And I'm so appreciative of that as well.
It's a pleasure and it's an honor, and thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Bye, Shelley.
Bye.
Thank you.